Sometimes life brings two people together in a way that feels almost impossible to explain. Not because everything is perfect, but because something about the connection feels real. And today I want to tell you something. I have a job for you. But don't worry, it's not the kind of job that comes with an office, a paycheck, or a contract. This one is different. This one is about us. Your job is simple. Stay when things get difficult. Listen when words become hard to find. Laugh with me when life gives us reasons to cry. And remind me on the days when I forget that some things are worth fighting for. Because if we're going to build something together, I don't want it to be based on luck. I want it to be based on choice. Two people choosing each other again and again, even when the easy thing would be to walk away. So, if you're willing to take this job, there's only one question left. Are you ready to find out what we're building together? There are moments in life when you meet someone and you start to wonder if maybe certain people arrive at exactly the right time. Not because you were searching for them, not because you had everything figured out, but because somehow, without planning it, they become part of a story you didn't know you were writing. And that's what I want to talk about today. I have a job for you. It sounds strange, I know. Usually, when someone says they have a job for you, you expect a position, responsibilities, a schedule, maybe a paycheck at the end of the month. You expect something practical, something you can measure. But this job isn't like that. There is no office, no uniform, no application, no interview, and there is no salary. Luckily, it's all about us. It's about two people deciding that what they have between them is worth protecting. It's about showing up when the excitement fades into ordinary days. It's about understanding that the best parts of life aren't always the dramatic moments. Sometimes they're the quiet ones. Sitting beside someone without needing to say anything. Sharing a meal after a difficult day. Looking across the room and realizing that you're not alone anymore. That's the job. Not being perfect. Not always knowing what to say. Not promising that nothing will ever go wrong. It's simply being willing to stay present. Because life is going to change us. There will be days when one of us feels strong and the other doesn't. There will be mornings when everything seems possible, and there will be nights when even getting through tomorrow feels like enough. There will be misunderstandings. There will be silence. There will be moments when we don't understand each other. And I don't want a relationship where we pretend those moments won't happen. I want something honest enough to survive them. I want us to be able to say, today was hard, without feeling like we have failed. I want us to be able to admit, I don't know what to do, and still know that someone is standing beside us, because sometimes love isn't about having the right answer. Sometimes love is simply refusing to leave someone alone with the question, and maybe that's why I call it a job. Because the things that matter most require effort. You don't build a life together by accident. You don't create trust in one afternoon. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly have a deep understanding of another human being. You learn them slowly. You learn the things they don't say. You learn when they need space and when they need someone to stay close. You learn the stories behind their fears. You learn what makes them laugh when they haven't laughed all day. You learn the little things. The favorite song, the quiet habit, the look they give when they're pretending everything is fine, the way they become excited when they talk about something they love. And over time, those little things become a language that only the two of you understand. That's something worth working for. And I think that's what makes this different. I'm not asking you to promise me a perfect future. I don't know what the future looks like. Nobody really does. We can make plans, but life has its own ideas. People change, circumstances change, dreams change. Sometimes the road we thought would take us somewhere beautiful turns in a completely different direction. But maybe we don't need to know every turn, maybe we just need to know who we're walking with. Because when you find someone who makes you feel understood, when you find someone you can be quiet around, when you find someone who doesn't need you to perform or pretend, you start to understand that companionship is one of the rarest things in life. There are millions of people in this world. We pass strangers every day. We hear thousands of voices. We see thousands of faces. And somehow, out of all those people, there can be one person who makes the world feel a little less distant. That's not something I want to take for granted. So if I'm giving you this job, I want you to understand what I'm really asking. I'm asking you to walk beside me, not ahead of me, not behind me, beside me. When I'm uncertain, don't always try to fix me. Just remind me that uncertainty doesn't mean the journey is over. And when you're uncertain, I want you to know you don't have to hide it from me. You don't have to be strong every second. You don't have to have everything figured out. You can be tired. You can be afraid. You can change your mind. You can have a bad day. You can say, I need you. And I want to be the kind of person who hears that without making you feel weak for saying it, because there is something beautiful about being able to put your guard down around another person. The world asks us to be strong all the time, work harder, keep going, don't complain, don't show weakness, don't stop. But with the right person, maybe strength can mean something different. Maybe strength is being honest. Maybe strength is saying, this hurts. Maybe strength is apologizing. Maybe strength is forgiving. Maybe strength is choosing to have the difficult conversation instead of walking away. And maybe the strongest thing two people can do is keep learning how to love each other better. Not perfectly. Better, that's all I would ask. Don't promise perfection to parverts in effort. Don't promise that we will never hurt each other, parverts, that when we do, we will care enough to repair what we can. Don't promise that we'll always agree. Promise that we'll respect each other when we don't. Don't promise that every day will feel like the beginning. Bostress, that we'll appreciate the ordinary days too. Because someday, we'll probably realize those ordinary days were the extraordinary ones. The morning coffee, the random conversation, the walk that had no destination, the laughter over something that wasn't even funny, the moment one of us fell asleep while the other was still talking. The simple, are you okay? The simple, I'm here. Those moments don't look important while they're happening, but later, they become memories. And memories are strange. We spend so much of our lives chasing the next thing that we sometimes forget. We're already living the moments we'll one day miss. So if we're going to do this, I don't want us to rush through it. I want us to notice. Notice the seasons changing. Notice how we change. Notice the way our dreams grow. Notice the little victories. Notice the difficult days we survive. Notice how far we've come, because life isn't only about reaching some final destination, it's about who we become while we're getting there. And I want to become someone you can trust, not because I say the right things, but because my actions eventually make the words unnecessary. I want you to know that when I say I'm here, I mean it. When I say I care, I mean it. When I say you're important to me, I don't want that to be something I only say when everything feels good. I want it to be true when things are complicated too. That's where commitment becomes real. Anyone can stay when everything is easy. The real question is, what happens when life becomes uncomfortable? What happens when communication becomes difficult? What happens when dreams collide? What happens when one person changes? What happens when circumstances become heavier than either person expected? That's where we discover whether something is real. And I don't want us to measure our relationship by how few problems we have. I want us to measure it by how we handle the problems we face. Because every relationship has weather. Some days are clear, some days are storms. But a storm doesn't mean the sky has disappeared. It means the sky is changing. And sometimes you simply have to wait. Sometimes you hold on. Sometimes you give each other room to breathe. And sometimes you reach for the other person's hand and say, without saying anything, we're going to get through this. That's the kind of partnership I believe in, not a perfect picture, a real one. A relationship where two imperfect people can create something meaningful because they refuse to treat each other's imperfections as reasons to stop caring. I don't need you to be someone else. I don't want the version of you that you think the world expects. I want the person you are when nobody is watching. The person behind the smile, behind the confidence, behind the fears, behind the plans, the real you. And I want you to have the same freedom with me, because if we can't be ourselves together, then what are we building? A performance? A beautiful looking story with nothing underneath it? No, I want something with roots, something that doesn't collapse because the outside world gets loud, something quiet, something strong. Something that doesn't need everyone else's approval, because at the end of the day, other people don't have to live our life. They don't wake up in our mornings. They don't carry our memories. They don't know the conversations we've had when nobody else was listening. They don't know what it took for us to get here. So maybe our job is not to convince the world that we're right for each other. Maybe our job is simply to make sure we don't lose sight of why we chose each other in the first place. And choosing someone isn't a one-time event. That's what I've learned. You can choose someone when everything is new. But you also have to choose them when the newness becomes familiar. You choose them when the conversation is exciting, and you choose them when the conversation becomes ordinary. You choose them when they're smiling, and you choose them when they're struggling. You choose them when you're proud of them. And sometimes you choose them when you're frustrated with them, not because you ignore the problems, because you decide the person is worth working through them with. That's a different kind of love, a quieter one, a deeper one that doesn't need to announce itself, one that can sit in silence and still feel full. And maybe that's what I want most: peace, not a life without problems, a life where, when problems arrive, we don't immediately turn against each other, a place where both people can say, it's us against the problem, not me against you, not you against me. Used together, because that's the job, to remember that we're on the same side. To remember that winning an argument isn't always the same as protecting the relationship. To remember that sometimes being right matters less than being kind. To remember that an apology doesn't make you smaller, it makes room for something better. And forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means deciding that the past doesn't have to control everything that comes next. We will make mistakes. I will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. That's part of being human. But maybe we can become the kind of people who learn from them instead of using them as weapons. Maybe we can build a place where honesty isn't punished, where vulnerability isn't mocked, where affection isn't embarrassing, where saying I love you doesn't require a special occasion, where appreciation is normal, where gratitude becomes a habit, because people should know when they matter. Not someday, not after they're gone, now while they're here. While there's still time to say it, while there's still time to hold their hand, while there's still time to sit beside them. Life moves faster than we realize. One day we're young and making plans. Then suddenly we're looking back and wondering where the years went. And when that day comes, I don't want to look back and wish I had said more. I don't want to regret the moments when pride stopped me from reaching out. I don't want to remember opportunities to be kind that I ignored because I was too busy trying to be right. I want to look back and know that I was present, that I loved honestly, that I listened, that I tried, that I didn't treat something precious like it was guaranteed to last forever, because nothing is guaranteed. That's not a depressing thought, it's actually a beautiful one. It reminds us to pay attention, to appreciate people while they're here, to say what we mean, to stop waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe there is no perfect moment, maybe the moment we have is the one that matters. So here's the job I'm offering you. Let's build something. Not something that looks perfect from the outside, something that feels right from the inside. Let's build trust. Let's build laughter. Let's build patience. Let's build memories. Let's build a life where neither of us has to wonder whether the other person cares. Let's make room for each other's dreams. Let's celebrate each other's growth. Let's become better people because we met each other. And when life changes us, let's not be afraid of that change. Let's learn each other again. Because loving someone means understanding that they won't always remain exactly the person you first met. Neither will you. We grow, we learn, we lose things, we discover new things, we become different versions of ourselves. And maybe the beautiful part isn't finding someone who never changes. Maybe it's finding someone you're willing to keep discovering, again and again, years later, after the excitement has settled, after the world has tested you, after you've seen each other's weaknesses, after you've experienced ordinary mornings and difficult nights, still being able to look at each other and say, I'm glad you're here. That might be enough, maybe more than enough. So yes, I have a job for you. But luckily, it's all about us. And the good news is, I don't expect you to do it alone. I'll be there too. Learning, trying, listening, falling short sometimes. Getting back up, and choosing us. Not because I know exactly where the road ends, but because I like who I am when I'm walking it with you. And maybe that's the only promise I can honestly make. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know how many years we'll have. I don't know what challenges will appear around the next corner, but if we're willing to face them together, if we're willing to keep choosing honesty over pride, patience over anger, understanding over judgment, and love over fear, then maybe we don't need to know everything. Maybe we just need to take the next step. Then the next one. There is something we don't talk about enough when we talk about love. We talk about the beginning, the first conversation, the first look, the first time you realize that someone has become important to you. We talk about the excitement, the uncertainty, the feeling that everything is new, but love isn't only found in beginnings. Sometimes the deepest part of love begins after the beginning is over, when the excitement becomes familiarity, when the perfect moments become ordinary mornings, when you start seeing the person not as an idea, but as a real human being, with fears, habits, weaknesses, dreams, and difficult days. That's when choosing someone becomes meaningful, because anyone can choose you when everything is easy. The real question is whether we continue choosing each other when life becomes complicated, not blindly, not by pretending problems don't exist, but by looking at each other and saying, we're worth the effort. Every day gives us a choice. We can listen or we can assume, we can forgive or we can keep score. We can speak with kindness or we can speak from anger. We can walk away from a difficult conversation or we can stay long enough to understand each other. And sometimes the choice is very small: a message, a phone call, a hand on someone's shoulder, a quiet, "Are you okay?" A moment where you put your own frustration aside because you realize the person in front of you is hurting. Those things don't look like grand gestures, but maybe love was never supposed to be measured by grand gestures. Maybe it's measured by consistency, by the little things that happen when nobody is watching, because eventually the flowers disappear, the special dinners become memories, the photographs become old. But the way someone makes you feel safe can stay with you, the way they listen, the way they remember, the way they show up, that's what remains. And I want us to understand that choosing each other doesn't mean agreeing with each other all the time. It doesn't mean never being angry. It doesn't mean never needing space. It doesn't mean giving up who we are just to keep the peace. Choosing each other means respecting each other's humanity. It means allowing two people to be different and still belong together. You can have different dreams and still support each other. You can disagree and still be kind. You can need time alone and still love someone deeply. You can make mistakes and still deserve another chance, because love isn't about ownership, it's about freedom, the freedom to be yourself while knowing there is someone who cares about you. And I think that's rare. To find someone who doesn't want to control your life, but wants to be part of it. Someone who doesn't ask you to become smaller so they can feel bigger. Someone who celebrates your growth instead of being threatened by it. Someone who says, go become everything you can become, and I'll be here when you come home. That's the kind of relationship worth choosing. And there will be days when choosing each other feels effortless. Those days are beautiful. But there will also be days when it takes patience. When you're tired, when you're stressed, when you've misunderstood each other, when something that shouldn't have become an argument suddenly becomes one. Those moments don't necessarily mean something is broken. Sometimes they simply mean two imperfect people are trying to share one life. And sharing a life requires learning. You learn when to speak, you learn when to listen, you learn when to apologize. You learn when silence is peaceful and when silence is avoidance. You learn that being right isn't always the most important thing. Sometimes being compassionate matters more. Sometimes you have to stop defending yourself long enough to hear what the other person is actually saying. And sometimes the most loving sentence is simply, I understand why that hurt you. Not because you intended to hurt them, not because you agree with everything, but because their feelings are real. That's what choosing someone means. Their feelings matter to you, their happiness matters, their dreams matter, their peace matters, not above your own, but alongside. Because a healthy relationship shouldn't require one person to disappear so the other can shine. It should give both people room to become more fully themselves. And maybe that's what I want for us. I don't want us to become one person. I want us to remain two people who deliberately walk in the same direction, two lives, two histories, two different minds, two different hearts, and still somehow one shared journey. That takes patience, it takes humility, it takes courage. Because when you truly let someone into your life, you give them the ability to hurt you. That's frightening. You can't control what another person will do. You can't guarantee that nothing will ever change. You can't predict every future version of yourself or the person beside you, but you can decide how you show up today. And today is where love actually lives, not yesterday, not some imagined future today, in the conversation you're having right now, in the person sitting beside you, in the opportunity to say something kind, in the chance to listen a little longer, in the decision to put your phone down and actually be present. These moments seem small, but a life is made from small moments. Years are just thousands of ordinary days placed beside each other, and relationships are built the same way: one conversation, one apology, one laugh, one difficult night, one morning, one promise kept, one promise repaired, one decision after another. That's how trust grows, slowly, quietly, and that's why I don't want us to chase perfection. Perfection creates pressure. I want something better: progress, understanding, growth. A relationship where we can look back and say, we weren't perfect, but we kept learning. Because that's something real. And if someday life becomes difficult, I don't want our first thought to be, maybe this means we were wrong about each other. I want our first thought to be, okay, this is difficult. What can we do? There is a difference. One gives up, the other gets curious. One searches for an exit, the other searches for understanding. And sometimes, of course, walking away is necessary. Love should never mean accepting cruelty, disrespect, or losing yourself. Choosing each other should never mean abandoning yourself. It should mean choosing each other freely, again and again, because you want to, because you see the value in what you're building, because despite the imperfections, there is something worth protecting. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing about choosing someone. It's not a promise that they will always be exactly what you want. It's a recognition that they are a human being and you are one too. You both have unfinished parts, you both have things to learn, you both have old wounds, old fears, old habits, and if you're lucky, you find someone who doesn't use those things against you. Someone who helps you become gentler with yourself. Someone who reminds you that your worst day isn't your whole story, and you become that person for them too. That's partnership. Not rescuing each other, not fixing each other, walking beside each other while each person does their own growing. And if we can do that, maybe the job becomes easier. Not because life becomes easier, but because we stop expecting life to be easy. We accept that storms will come. We accept that plans will change. We accept that people will sometimes disappoint us. And we learn how to respond without destroying everything we've built. We learn how to pause, how to breathe, how to say, let's talk about this tomorrow. How to recognize when anger is temporary, but words can leave permanent scars. How to protect something precious even when we're frustrated, because once words are spoken, you can't always take them back. So let's be careful with each other, not fearful, careful. There is a difference. Fear says, don't be yourself. Care says, your words matter because this person matters. And I want your words to matter to me. I want my words to matter to you. I want us to be able to tell each other the truth without turning the truth into a weapon, because honesty without kindness can become cruelty, and kindness without honesty can become pretending. We need both truth and compassion. That's where something real can exist. And maybe, years from now, we'll look back at the person we are today and barely recognize ourselves. We'll have changed, we'll have learned, we'll have experienced things we can't imagine yet, and maybe that's okay. Because I don't want to love only the person you are today. I want to keep discovering who you become. I want to meet the future versions of you, the stronger you, the wiser you, the older you, the person who changes their mind, the person who discovers a new dream, the person who wakes up one morning and realizes they want something different. And I want you to have the same freedom with me, because choosing someone every day doesn't mean choosing the exact same person every day. It means choosing to keep knowing them, keep listening, keep learning, keep showing up. And maybe that's what makes love last, not the intensity of the beginning, but the willingness to remain curious about each other long after the beginning has passed. So if this is our job, let's take it seriously, not heavily, not fearfully, just honestly. Let's make room for laughter. Let's make room for mistakes. Let's make room for silence. Let's make room for dreams. Let's make room for change. Let's make room for forgiveness. Let's make room for two imperfect people to build something neither could build alone. Because I don't know exactly where this road leads, but I know that some roads are worth walking simply because of who walks beside you. And if we keep choosing each other with honesty, patience, respect, and courage, then maybe we don't need to know the ending. Maybe all we need is the next step, and then another, and then another, and then the next. Together, that's the job. And somehow I think it's the best job either of us could ever have.